wars and lead to world peace.
You go to war with another country that's friendly to us or even not friendly to us. You're not going to do business in the United States, and we're going to charge you 100% tariffs. And all of a sudden, the president or prime minister or dictator or whoever the hell is running the country says to me, sure, we won't go to war.
Now, Trump has said that, quote, tariffs are the greatest thing ever invented. And now it appears that he intends to make tariffs a centerpiece of his economic policy. But Trump is either wildly misinformed about tariffs or he's being deliberately misleading about what they are and what they do. So I want to talk this morning about the basics of tariffs so that people understand what tariffs are and how they work. A tariff is a tax. It's imposed on imported goods. It's technically paid for by the importers of the item being taxed. That might be a retailer, might be a wholesaler, might be a manufacturer. In practice, companies simply pass that cost on to consumers, which typically results in higher prices. Now, in theory, tariffs are used to encourage domestic production by placing a barrier on imports of less expensive products that are made or grown in other countries. Trump's tariff plan is what Harris is calling a Trump sales tax, because one of the things that the Republican nominee has proposed is imposing a blanket 10 to 20% tariff on all imported goods, no matter what it is or where it comes from, let's say even from Canada. But he wants an even higher baseline of 60%, 50 to 60%, he says, for all goods imported from China, the country from which America imported more goods than any other until last year when Mexico surpassed China as America's top source of imports. Now, speaking of Mexico, Trump has also floated the idea of 100% tariffs on all automobiles manufactured in Mexico, except that under the USMCA, the trade agreement that succeeded NAFTA, large parts of what we think of as domestically produced vehicles in America are manufactured or assembled in Canada and Mexico. So that would be a breach of America's longstanding and very successful trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. Now, to be fair, tariffs can be a useful tool when used strategically, and they are used for various purposes. But blanket indiscriminate tariffs are almost never a good idea. They cost consumers money. They cause the targeted countries to retaliate almost 100% of the time. Many economists, including Nobel laureates, have criticized the broad application of tariffs on all imported goods. They've warned that not only would it lead to higher prices and a global trade war, but it actually could end up resulting in a loss of jobs here in America. Even the Republican Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, said recently, quote, he's not a fan of tariffs. An across-the-board tariff proposal would be unprecedented. And despite the many warnings from experts and other lawmakers, it is becoming a potentially more serious threat by the day. So it's important that we have a comprehensive discussion on tariffs. And who better to have that with than the United States Trade Representative for the current administration, Ambassador Katherine Tai. Ambassador, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate this because this is a really important conversation. It's coming up a lot, and I would suspect most people don't get up in the morning thinking a whole lot about tariffs. So let's do that for them this morning.
Thank you so much, Ali. It's wonderful to be here with you. And I get up every morning thinking about trade policy, and tariffs are part of trade policy. So that is me.
Fair enough. Well, then that we got the right person. Let's first of all talk about the strategic use of tariffs. Some of that is for domestic manufacturing and production. Some of it is politics, because sometimes you impose tariffs as a punitive measure in other countries. New tariff hikes on $18 billion worth of Chinese goods, in fact, just took effect on Friday. So there are tariffs on a number of categories of products, green technology, semiconductors. Talk to me about why you use tariffs, where you should and where you shouldn't.
Well, I'm delighted to be a part of this conversation, Ali, which is really a conversation about trade policy and tariffs that is rational, unemotional, and sober. So let's begin by taking one step backwards, which is, as the Biden-Harris administration's trade representative, our trade policy is working in tandem with our other economic policies. And the core of our economic policy can be summed up in just a couple words, which is middle out economics, middle out and bottom up. It is in contrast to the trickle-down policies that have prevailed here in the United States and around the world for several decades now. And there is an overwhelming consensus that trickle-down just doesn't work, that by making the richest richer and benefiting those who already have so many benefits, that those benefits, that wealth, is not trickling down to the middle class or to those with aspirations of joining the middle class and our working classes. So, number one, tariffs and trade can, and in our view, must be used as part of a strategy for growing the middle class and empowering the working class. And that is the basis from which we proceed.
So in 2023, for the first time in 20 years, the United States bought more goods from Mexico, $475.6 billion, than it did from China, $427.2 billion, or from any other country. Talk to me about what that means, because right now, and we're going to talk in the next segment a little bit more specifically about China, but talk to me about that. This is, in my opinion, a result of a very long and successful relationship that we have been developing with our neighbors, Mexico and Canada.
So let's look through the lens of the NAFTA, which has been reborn as the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Something that a lot of people don't realize is that the USMCA, as a correction for NAFTA, actually has quite a bit of democratic policy blueprint in its DNA. That the USMCA is the trade agreement the United States has that has the highest worker standards, worker protections, environmental standards, and also a worker-specific, labor-specific enforcement mechanism that, at the end of the day, does involve tariffs as not a punitive measure, I would say as a playing field leveling measure, as a consequence for bad behavior. Now, what I want to highlight is the legacy and the baggage of the original NAFTA around our workers and our industries. The flow over time, the trickle down and the trickle out, if you will, of a lot of American manufacturing that moved from the United States to Mexico. Now, one of the fundamental focuses of the NAFTA's renegotiation into the USMCA and then now our implementation and enforcement of the USMCA is to ensure that this trade agreement, which was renegotiated so recently, carries forward its pro-worker DNA. It's pro-leveling the playing field DNA. And that's the part I really want to highlight, which is with the shifting of trade balances, that the most important thing people should know about the USMCA is that we are, for the first time, as the Biden-Harris administration, using a trade agreement of all things to help to empower Mexico's workers and empower our workers by holding accountable corporations that have offshored American manufacturing jobs to Mexico for several decades now.
I want to talk about China. I want to talk about electric vehicles, because that comes up a lot in this election. And again, there's really good information that I think our viewers need about this. So stand by right where you are. Ambassador Catherine Tai is staying with me. We're going to continue our discussion after a quick commercial break.
It's Halloween! Little Lobo and friends are dressed up and excited for a night of trick-or-treating.
Trick or treat!
Tonight is filled with candy, costumes, and scary stories. Tomorrow, they'll observe Dia de los Muertos with marigolds, offerings, and stories about loved ones lost. Happiness will fill the air as they celebrate the spirits of those they love. Celebrate 2 holidays with Little Lobo.
We were wondering if anything happened to us.
We want you to take the kids.
Doesn't count. What you need is a will, something you can sign and make official. Start your will at trustandwill.com and make it count.
Looking for a way to stretch the dollar? With Insurify, you can cut your car insurance bill in half. Getting a deal on car insurance from Insurify is super easy, and all you need is a phone and a finger. Scroll through dozens of prices and tap to switch online. That's it. No phone calls and no wasted time. It's just like searching for a flight or hotel online. Enter your car information and Insurify does the rest. Go to Insurify and save today.
Check if you're overpaying for car insurance. Go to Insurify.com.
Target Circle Week, 1 week.
Sunday to 6.
Target Circle Week,
Sunday to
1
6.
week.
Big
Ow.
deal.
It's Target Circle Week.
Get ready for 7 days of big deals.
That's right, Penn. What a big week.
Huge week. Starting October 6th.
Every election night reveals a story about the candidates. It's about the campaign that we just watched, but it reveals a story about the voters who decided the election. The presidential election is America's family photo, and we take one every 4 years.
10 villains. And a million backstabs.
To Battleground.
What?
E's House of Villains returns October 9th on E!
I'm Alec Mercer. I'm a behavioral psychologist. The FBI calls me because I know why people do the inexplicable.
You mean dangerous and stupid?
Is that a scientific term?
It should be.
The Irrational, new October 8th on NBC and Peacock.
I've always loved election nights. Every election night reveals a story about the candidates, about the campaign that we just watched, but it reveals a story about the voters who decided the election, what mattered to them, what didn't matter to them, what they prioritized. The presidential election is America's family photo. We take one every 4 years, and we can look back over time and we can see who and what the country was and where it was just on the presidential election.
I would like to introduce you to the Build Your Dream Seagull. This is a Chinese electric vehicle. It is sleek, it is well made, and it's super cheap. It costs about $12,000 in China, and if the United States and Canada were to levy a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, which they are preparing to do, the BYD Seagull would still be cheaper than the least expensive electric vehicles available to North American consumers right now. Now, this poses an issue to American automakers who have been given a boost by the Biden administration to get the car market, get some more domestically made electric vehicles onto the market. So if you're the U.S. government, what do you do about this? Deferring to the market may mean hurting American workers, but it may mean lower consumer prices. Well, according to the U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, we've been in this kind of situation before. China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001 and quickly became a big trade partner with the United States. But as Tai wrote earlier this year in the Financial Times, China's emergence as the world's factory floor hurt American workers long term. Quote, a laissez-faire system has allowed short-term profit-driven businesses to maximize their gains, often by partnering with a non-market autocracy to further that goal. While profits and executive pay soared, workers were left behind. The American economy has been and remains an open one. That, however, has meant that American workers were particularly exposed to the harms from such behavior. Communities were devastated as trade policy remained isolated from democratic accountability, end quote. With lessons from the past in mind, Ambassador Tai is hoping to use U.S.